Welcome to Just an Average Citizen, the podcast that helps to educate, inform, and empower you to make an impact in Abilene and the Big Country. Welcome to the latest episode. It's been a hot minute since I've been on here doing a podcast. Part of that has been because I really want to make sure that I don't just post a podcast with fluff in it because I don't want to waste your time. And the other part it's been a crazy season. So I'm hoping I can get back into the rhythm of doing this and making sure I'm getting information out to you so you can be educated and informed about what's going on in the Big Country. And I do say the Big Country because even if you're not an Abilene resident, you need to be paying attention to what's going on in the city of Abilene because it will affect you, because Abilene is the hub of the Big Country. It is the biggest city. It affects life here in Taylor County, in Callahan County, Nolan County, Jones County, all the counties around Abilene. And so it's important that you know what's going on because the decisions that are made by the council affect you. And I've seen it happen where citizens who are not residents of the city actually come and say, listen, your decisions are affecting me. So it's important that we make sure that we're informed and educated so we can be a part of what's going on. And it's so helpful if you would share this podcast with your friends and family just to make sure they know what's going on too, because the more educated we are, the better decisions we make as a whole. I mean, that's the problem right now is we don't feel like we know what's going on. And I read recently that one of the tactics of the enemy is to say a lot of things that make you feel confused. Because when you feel confused, then you don't feel confident and trust your gut knowing right and wrong. And that makes you so much easier to control. So when there's so much information going around or not even enough information and you only hear one side of it, it can really make you feel uncertain and unconfident about what you need to do and the next steps you need to take. So one of the things I hope to do is to help give you a solid footing so that you can move forward. But as all things go, I have found myself, even in my best attempts to be accurate, I say silly things like I still am kicking myself saying that on the Big Country Politics show I was on a couple weeks ago where I said that Kyle McAllister had been on the council for 15 years. That's not right. He was running for his fifth term. I meant, 12 years. And I get all the information mixed up. So one of the good things is if you fact check me and make sure that I am saying things right, then it helps you to feel confident that, hey, at least for the most part, I'm really trying to stay right on the facts so that we move forward in a helpful way. And that is one of the things that was the great part about me running for city council is I got to see a whole nother aspect of what happens in the city and how people behave and how people respond. And I wasn't even expecting that part. I was just going to do the next right thing that I felt like I was supposed to do, that I felt like God was leading me in. And I got to see so much more than I even bargained for. And I'm still working through all the data of all the things that came my way and how to sort it. And there are people that reached out to me to offer things, to help me with things, with information and connections. And I honestly haven't had a minute to sit down and go, okay, how's best to utilize and connect with these people so that we can make sure that we're all included and being able to bring our gifts and talents to bring a blessing to our city instead of sitting back and not feeling qualified or capable. And if you haven't noticed or haven't heard yet, the runoff happened or it concluded on Saturday, June 7th, and we do have a new council member. And Miguel Espinoza was able to take 58% of the votes, and that is a strong direction of things to come. One of the things that excited me so much about Miguel running is he was very unqualified. He was just an average person like myself who decided, hey, I want to be more involved and be a part of things. And whether he was encouraged by people and people said, hey, here's some money if you'll run, or whether he's like, how do I do this? It doesn't really matter because city council is not meant for, it's supposed to be for elites. It's not supposed to be for a select few. It's supposed to be something that we all can engage in. Now, granted, if you love working with children or you're like, say, a school teacher, it's probably not going to be an easy thing for you to do because you obviously have to be at school. But for the most part, the qualifications to run for city council are not what you would think or what most people think. It's someone who wants to know information, wants to be informed, and wants to make a positive impact. The information is accessible and you can start to understand how to navigate through this. It's not rocket science, but it just takes someone who's committed. And so what I love about Miguel Espinoza being on the council now is he is an average person. He doesn't come with this long history of experiences and qualifications that give him an upper edge. He comes with an attitude of wanting to serve his community. And while that may sound condescending if you twist my words. Honestly, that was the part that excited me most, because in talking to him, I found that he did want to know more things. And granted, I've had a lot more time learning this information, so it was clear that I knew more than him, but just because I'd spent a little bit more time, and it's not something that's too hard to overcome. So now, as we have elections every May for different city council positions, I hope this begins to open up the doors to say, listen, if you're interested in making a positive impact in the community, then let's do it. Let's try and run for city council. It doesn't have to be something that's so complicated and expensive. Although that was one part of the conversation that just popped up last week, which I thought was so interesting, is the concern about how much money the Tree PAC invests in our local community. Now, I didn't like that because it is a PAC out of Austin and it's for the Texas Realtors. But from what I understand, the local realtors have a program, or they have like these processes of how they raise funds to be able to invest. Now, I do think $8,500 in and of itself, or I'm sorry, $7,500 is a lot of money to give for one city council race. That didn't make sense. But the funny thing is nobody seemed to have a big issue with it until the runoff. And so my opponent received that money and he used it on mailers, and Miguel received that money and he used it on mailers and other things like that. So it's interesting to see who cries foul at what point, because this is not something that I hope you can't hear my dog drinking water right now. I don't think audio is going to be that good, and she only drinks like 3 times a day, and so she'll probably be drinking for a little bit of time, because that's how life is. We sit in a quiet house, and then that makes the perfect moment for her to drink some water. So I'm sorry for that, but keeping it real here. But anyway, so what we have learned is that there are some influences that do donate big. And if it had not been for Tree PAC donating to my opponent, I don't know if he would have had any money. I mean, he barely, I think, raised maybe $2,000, and the bulk of it came from the Tree PAC endorsement. And the same goes, Miguel, he blew us out of the water with his donations. He raised up a bunch of contributions before getting those donations or that endorsement. So it really helped him. But again, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, because what happens is you don't win elections by how many commercials you have. You don't win elections by how many times you come to a forum. You don't win elections by how many mailers you send out. You win elections by starting to get people involved. And right now there's a few select people involved, and they're really happy with the way things are, and they kind of choose from one person to the other, but they really pretty much stay united the whole process. And then there's a group of us that are like, hey, let's try something different. Let's shake things up, because it should not be a lifetime career being on city council. Anyway, sorry, I didn't even mean to get on that for that much, but I will say that a lot of things have been made more clear in this process. And so mark your calendars. The first Saturday in May next year is city council elections. And we have place 3 and place 4, and also the mayor is up. So this is a big election for our city, because who is elected in the mayor position gets to have a lot of say in how the city manager handles things. And with the new city manager coming in at the end of the month, there's a lot of movement and a lot of opportunity to shake things up in a good way. I won't get into it, but there's some things that I really want to help you start to understand why I think we are really capping ourselves at the knee, or cutting ourselves off the kneecap. I can't think of the right expression right now, but we're really cutting ourselves off on the potential we have to actually do some good here because of this public-private partnership that we have going on in our city. But that's a conversation for another day. I did want to give you some information on really just some of the experiences I've had in learning how to navigate through learning to stand for truth, learning to be educated, learning to be proud of the work that you have done so that you can stand confident when attacks come, because they will. I did mention I was on the Big Country Politics with Manny Diaz, and I was so grateful he even let me have an opportunity to speak, because there were some things presented by another guest that I was not quite impressed with, and felt like the scholarship and the academic reasoning was lacking. And so I was able to have small input in that. But what was interesting is when I didn't say anything on that post or comment on that interview or anything like that. I just wanted to come and bring a different side. And I brought facts as best as I could. And of course, you want to say everything perfectly, but let's be real. There were some things that you're like, oh, why did I say it that way? But you have a short segment. I think I was on there for maybe 7 minutes, and there was other topics we discussed. So But what I thought was interesting is when that dropped on Facebook, there were several people who I've engaged with before who made comments on there. And the reason why it was highlighted to me this time differently in a conversation I had with another person kind of came together is that the problem with most of us here in Abilene is we're just trying to get along. We're trying to do our lives. We're trying to do the next right thing. We're trying to figure out how do we survive? How do we make ends meet? How do we get connected and thrive in the community we live in? We don't really want to stir the pot. But there's a group that's typically, if not most times, stands in opposition to everything I hold dear and value in my life. And I think is the right thing to do. They are fine with stirring the pot. They're fine with saying whatever they think because they've done it enough that no one responds to them. Nobody pushes back against them, and they feel like they have a blank check to write whatever they want to without anyone really challenging them. And as it was seen on the social media posts, is that, there are people who said things on that post that had I been in front of their face, they wouldn't have said it. And that's the problem with social media is it gives you this anonymity that gives you permission to talk to people in such disrespectful ways that you wouldn't do in normal conversation. And when I was campaigning, that was one of the things I really tried hard to, when it was clear that there was some kind of difference of opinion, I thought it was better to meet in person than it was to continue going back and forth on social media because conversations go off you chase squirrels, and you can't do anything really successful in that environment. And what was ironic is in that attempt to try and meet face to face so we could have some really helpful discussions and move forward in a positive way, it was used against me like I was avoiding something. And I think that's what's wrong with our world today is to meet in person and have face-to-face conversations is considered avoiding rather than just laying it all out there in social media world where you never have to be accountable for anything you say or do. I mean, you can say whatever you want to. In fact, there was even I was made aware of some comments made about my position on fluoride. And what was great, it was a blatant lie. Like there was nothing factual about it except the word fluoride, and my position was in there. But everything else was misleading and dishonest. At best, I don't know if the right word to say it worse, because I don't think it was done with ignorance. But I had to make a choice. Do I try and fight people who are going to choose to lie about facts that is not true? Or do I stay the course and try and work on making sure I'm making a difference? And that was a hard call because my flesh was like, whoa, that's wrong. I don't like being lied about. And this person chose to make some inferences that were not true. And there was, and it's fine. It is your right to lie. But what I hope over time is that people start to see my character and know that if there's something said about me that seems contradictory to my personality, there is probably a reason for that. And I really like to work with anybody. In fact, that was one of the things that I have enjoyed most about being involved in city council is getting to know people that I would have never known and getting to be able to have some kind of in-person dialogue. However, the one person on council I had never interacted with in person chose to be the biggest disrespectful, rude. I mean, they were just rude. There's no reason to behave that way, especially when we both consider ourselves to be Christians. It's like, if you don't agree with someone, you can still be respectful to them and polite and shake their hand. It doesn't have to be this big, complicated thing. But if you've held on to a grudge for several years, then that's on you because there's ways we can work around to restore stuff. And so what's insightful for me on that is that you find the people who want to work with you. You find the people who can at least tolerate and have a decent conversation, and those who are going to be disrespectful, and those who are not going to engage with you in a way that allows something to be resolved. Just move on. It is what it is, and not everyone's going to be a fan, and not everybody's going to want to actually do stuff. Some people are happy stuck in their little place on their own and not willing to make a difference. So, those are things that I've learned is that we who stand, for the most part, I think, for the things that matter to God, protecting children, protecting our God-given liberties, and making sure we uphold a morality in our community that allows our laws to be enforced and things like that, that creates places for families to thrive and businesses to thrive and communities to thrive. Those people are not going to go around and stir the pot and cause problems within the community, but those who are partnering on some really rough positions that are not going to stand the test of time. Protecting our children is one that is really coming undone at the seams. And it's crazy to me that people are still saying, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, when they clearly are. Those people are really okay with spreading misinformation, and they're okay with causing problems, and they're used to not having any pushback. So I'm not asking you to be a social media warrior. I'm just asking you to be aware that if you start to notice that people who speak out on things either are complaining or they're just mean-spirited, but it's not very much that people who are working towards something better are going to engage much on social media, and that's okay. What's more important is what are we doing in the real world? How are we responding? And so really quickly, I've already bloviated a lot about that, but I will say that I've learned a lot about how do you handle situations? How do you walk through things? How can you resolve things? As one who likes to walk, for the most part, in peace and unity, it's really hard because some of the things I'm called to say and the positions I'm called to take are divisive, and the very fact that they require people to choose a side. And most people don't want to have to make that choice. They want to be able to stay in the middle and just kind of be ambiguous. And we are no longer in a day and age where we can be ambiguous or indifferent to the concerns in our world. And we've seen what happens when things escalate to the point where it's just chaos. And we don't want that in Abilene or the big country. So I did want to point out to you, the website was upgraded. I thought I'd show you some news, but really, I just want to get to this part. The problem that I see right now is the biggest thing is transparency. And one of the things I hope the city manager can come in and bring is just better protocols to create transparency among what's going on in the city, so that it's not that we have to wonder what's behind the door. We know what's going on, and we can be confident that these people are doing what they say they are, rather than having to question. And that's just a lot of wasted time and effort. So one of the things I thought was interesting, this is just a Facebook post on the city of Abilene. They posted, finally they updated on June 2nd about the cyber attack. They've been basically silent. They removed the original post talking about, or the first talking about the original attack, which I don't understand. They just kind of updated it. And then there's May 8th contact numbers, and then there's a new city manager coming in about 2 weeks. Anyway, so they posted this on here, and I'm trying my best to engage more because I don't like saying things. I don't like drawing attention to myself in some ways in public places, because I know what you open yourself up to. But it said they would like to thank the residents for the patience, and they gave it this news article. So I went and I read this news article, and it was like all this stuff like, we're doing fine. There's not that much going on. We're just moving forward. And then I read this little one part that I thought was real interesting. It says, we are in the process of replacing all network infrastructure, including servers, storage, and all the desktops and laptops. By doing so, we will create a new cybersecure environment that we can assure is set up for the future. So all desktops and laptops, how many would you get? How much is that going to cost? No clue about that. I did make the comment. Let me see if I can find it real fast. I personally made the comment that said, what's the ballpark cost of this, or was this covered by insurance? So the city did not reply. Nobody said anything. And again, I do not fault the Facebook poster who's in charge of this. It is leadership that is allowing them to share or not share. So this is not an issue with who's doing the work. It's what they're giving parameters to do. And I think it's sad to me, because they shouldn't do that. This person gets the brunt of all the drama that could be prevented if we were just more open and communicated better. But I've worked on that for I've introduced that many times. Can you communicate better? Like for example, I did see that the street maintenance and advisory board meeting in June, it's normally June, it was canceled for August. And I don't know if that's because they don't have the documents. I don't know anything, but they canceled it. So of all the meetings that you could influence, I would say that's a good one to show up for, except for what I understand is they've already decided everything before the meeting. So when you show up, it's kind of moot. And that's what I'm finding is there's a lot of things that happen on the surface, but all the decisions are made behind the closed doors. So how do you really deal with that? You really can't, because they're technically deciding in front of us, but really they're deciding behind closed doors, and we don't really get a say. So this is a good article to read and just see how they're like, we suffered an attack. They're given a ransom. There's no evidence that information's being hacked. And then there's a guy on social media that said, hey, I do this kind of stuff for a living. And it seems like there's a lot of questions not being answered. And again, transparency. Why can't we do that? So one of the things that I thought I just want to connect that briefly to this is that the products and services requirement. So this is part of the consent agenda, I believe. Yeah, it's the consent agenda. So you remember there's two parts of the agenda. There's the consent, which is all grouped together and passed on one motion unless a citizen or city council asks to have it separated. And then there's also the regular agenda and the executive session. So 3 parts. But this is all going to be grouped together, so they're not going to discuss this, which I actually think I might request for it to be pulled. We'll see what I decide. I don't know. There's another special city council meeting on Wednesday morning for Lancium and Oracle. Something going along with the lines of that. I didn't even read it because there's no information about it. So it's just kind of a free for all, and we'll figure out this is like the 3rd special meeting they've had. Okay, so I just wanted to point out that this is product and services that they've had to use to deal with the cyber attack, and it's at $981,000. That's what they're dealt with, and they've told us about. There's also 2 more items on the agenda for some contracts that there's no timeline of how long these contracts last or where they're being paid from. Is it the general fund? I mean, how are we paying for this? And there's like $78,000 and I think maybe $200,000. I can't remember. It's been a hot minute since I looked at it. But there's money. So we're over $1 million right now into this. Plus they're replacing all servers, all desktops, and laptops. This is getting into the millions easily. I don't even know if tens of millions, but it is going to be expensive. And then also on Thursday, they're issuing the certificate of obligation, which is for the phase 5 and phase 6 of the HVAC replacements and the water stuff. There's something they're doing with the water. It's $25 million, which basically means we're going to be paying $50 million because of interest that we're paying. And they'll talk about it only cost you like $80 a year. And, but taxes are going up. They're coming. Watch. Your taxes are going up. But the thing that irritated me, which you can watch on the city council meeting, is they're like, oh, there's no cost to you for the water and sewer one. They're taking out, is it $15 million? For that one, I think that's the one that's $50 million. And they're taking that out on and taking it in the water utilities, putting in water utilities. So there's no cost to you on that, except you're going to pay for it in your sewer bill. So I don't know if that sounds like a cost to me. So again, I'm learning how this new role looks because I was pushing to get on the council. So now I'm still a citizen. I'm just an average citizen, and I'm trying to get more average citizens to join me. That's what this podcast is all about. So I'm going to cut it off there because I could go on for way longer than you really care to listen. And so I appreciate you sharing this with your family and friends because it's really important that we get the word out about what's going on. This is not something that you have to dig deep and learn hard stuff all the time. But once you figure it out, then you can maintain it a lot easier and be informed and engaged, that you can be empowered to make an impact in Abilene. And each one of you who are listening to this and whoever should listen to this in the future, you do have the capacity to make an impact in Abilene in the big country. And it's important that you start to realize that. And then I don't even think did I talk about that we had a great turnout at our runoff election? We had almost the same amount of people show up for the runoff as we did for the May election, which blew my mind. I was thinking maybe 2,000. We had almost 5,000 people show up to vote for Miguel Espinoza and Kyle McAllister. And while Kyle's finishing up a great full 12 years of serving on the school city council, let's look forward to seeing what can happen when new people come on and we have more frequent turnover so that everyone gets to participate. It's not just this rut that they get in because they've been in council so long that they've forgotten what it's like to be a citizen trying to learn what's going on. And I'm just learning as I go, just like I want you to learn as we go together, because I've met some amazing people on this journey. And I'm so thankful for how God has broadened my circle with people I would have never crossed paths with because I'm pursuing things in this level of and a part of our community I was really never involved in. And so I'm grateful for that. So I hope you're a little more educated, a little more informed, and a little more empowered to make an impact in Abilene and the big country. Until next time.